Hey guys, this is Mr. C, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how to evaluate some algebraic and numerical expressions. So the first thing we need to know is a little bit of academic vocabulary. So what is an expression? An expression is a mathematical phrase that contains only operations, so that's addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, numbers, and or variables. So it can contain any variety of those things. A numerical expression contains only numbers and operations, while an algebraic expression contains at least one variable. A term is part of an expression that is added, and the coefficient of a term is the numerical factor of the term. And we usually say that that's the number out front. So, for instance, if I have this little graphic organizer here, diagram, I have 2x squared minus 16x plus 32. Now, you don't need to know what that actually is right now. What we're going to do is break it down. So, first of all, we have coefficient pointing to this number and this number. And like we said, the coefficient is the number, the factor in front of the variable, wherever the variable is. Well, here's your variables, x squared and x. They're different, but it's still the same x. This one's just squared. The coefficients are the numbers in front. And then you have your constant at the end. And sometimes you have a constant and sometimes you don't. If you don't see that number there at the end, then we just say that the constant is 0, and then we don't write anything. So coefficients, variables, and constants, all of these are terms. So 2x squared is a term, negative 16x is a term, and 32 is a term. So this has 3 terms, and we actually call that a trinomial. All right, so let's take a look. So this one says, identify any terms, variables, coefficients, and constants in the expression below. So let's talk about terms. So what do you think the terms would be? So if I was to list the terms out, we have a 3m, a negative 4n because it's minus, and a negative 8 because it's minus. So if I list all the terms out, I would have to list 3m, negative 4n, and you have to have the sign in front, especially if it's negative, and then negative 8 would be your terms, okay? So we got that. What about variables? So variables, okay? So that would be the m right there is a variable, and the n right there would be a variable. So we have 2 variables in this one, okay? Let's talk about our coefficients. So coefficients, C-O-E-F-F-I-C-I-E-S. So our coefficients are going to be the numbers, factors in front of the variables. So that would be 3. And here we have negative 4. Now, how come I don't put a negative 8 down here for coefficients? Well, there's not really a variable right there. We would actually call that a constant. And that's our last thing we need to talk about. So the constant in this case is just one of them, and it's negative 8. So why do we make a big deal out of this? Well, we make a big deal out of this because all throughout algebra, we're going to be referring to these things by their names. And we're just not going to go back and explain every single time what a term is, what a variable is, what a coefficient is, what a constant is. And on your end of course test, that's exactly what they're going to do. They're going to say terms, variables, coefficients, constants. And so if we don't learn what those 4 things are right there, then we're going to have a very hard time solving some problems. We just will have no idea what to do or what's going on. Okay? So now we're going to get into some numerical expressions. And this says, use the order of operations to simplify the expression. So the order of operations, we all learned is PEMDAS, right? And so we should all at this level probably have some idea how that works because we've been using it for a few years. So we do parentheses first and then exponents. And it's actually, you might do exponents before parentheses depending on what your expression looks like. You're going to do multiplication, division next, and then addition, subtraction after that. So how would I simplify this? It's very tempting to do 1 minus 6 right at the start. Do not do that because we do not do subtraction before this other stuff. So let's take a look. We do need to do parentheses here. So I'm going to say 1 minus 6 times 7 take away 4 is 3. And I'm still going to use parentheses. All right. And then, even though I don't really need to, plus 5 squared. Is it going to hurt if I do this right now? I don't really think so. 5 squared is 5 times 5. That's what squared means. It's not times 2, and kids will put 10 down. It's really 5 times 5, which is really 25, right? So now I have plus 25 right here. Okay, so now I'm looking and I'm thinking, did I really need these parentheses here that I put there? Probably not, but it's okay to do that. I'm looking left to right, and now I've removed parentheses, I've taken care of exponents, and now I need to look at multiplication and division. So still got to wait on that. So now I have 6 times 3. Well, 6 times 3 is 18. Okay, so I need to replace 6 times 3 with 18. So 1 minus 18 plus 25. And notice that minus right there is still right here. Okay, so now I have 1 minus 18. 1 take away 18, and I've got subtraction here and addition. Left to right, subtraction, addition, whichever one you come to first is the one you're going to do. And the reason why is because subtraction is really the same thing as addition. You're just adding a negative number. So subtraction and addition are almost the same operation, just like multiplication and division are almost the same operation, because when you divide, you're really multiplying by a fraction. So getting back to this, 1 minus 18 is negative 17 plus 25. And then if you take negative 17 and add that to 25, you should get 8. And so our final answer for this one should be 8. All right, let's take a look at another one. Okay, this one, we have 2 plus 3 minus 4, then times 9. And this one says, show how to move the parentheses in the expression below so that the value is 9. So what this is a typical end of course question. And it's saying, how do we take these parentheses and move them differently so that we get a value of the whole thing is 9 instead of whatever it's going to be? Well, let's see what it would have been. This would be negative 1 times 9 is negative 9 plus 2 would be negative 7. So I'm just talking it out. As it sits right now, this whole thing is negative 7. So if I move the parentheses instead of here, if I put them here, then I would get 2 plus 3 minus 4 times 9. All right, so that would give me 3 plus 4 is 5, right? Minus 4 times 9. Well, 4 times 9 I have to do first, and that's going to be 36. There's no way I'm going to get 9 out of this. So by moving the parentheses here, I'm not helping myself out at all. What if I move the parentheses here? So let's take a look at that one. 2 plus 3, and then let's say I move the parentheses, and this is going to be kind of weird. If I make it minus 4 times 9 like that, I'm going to get 36 here and a 5 there. That's really not going to help me out either, because if I do that, I'm going to get 5 minus 36, and I'm kind of still just like where I started, right? So I'm not helping myself out any. What if I take this parenthesis though, and I move it in front of the 2? So what if I do 2 plus 3 minus 4 times 9? Well, let's see how that works. You can see all the different ways you can move these parentheses, and there's a lot. So 2 plus 3 would be 5 minus 4 times 9. So 5 minus 4 is 1, and 1 times 9 is going to be 9. So in an end of course test or a final exam or whatever you guys are going to take, it may take a little bit of thinking until you figure out how to move these parentheses differently so that the overall expression, when you evaluate it, gives you 9. And that is one way that that can be done. Are there more ways? Well, I mean, you could sit there and figure out all the ways you can move the parentheses. But for right now, since I found one, I'm just going to stay with it and go with it. So this is correct. This was not. All right. Let's take a look at this one right here. This one says, evaluate the algebraic expression below where x is equal to 2. So what if x is 2? What it means is, if x is 2 to evaluate, you basically plug in a 2 wherever you see x, here and here. After you plug those 2's in, you go ahead and simplify it. So let's see what that's going to look like. 2 times 4 times 2 minus 10, and then cubed. All right, now let's go ahead and evaluate this and see what that looks like. I have to do parentheses first. I can't really cube this before I do this first. So the 2 is going to have to kind of hang out there. 4 times 2 is 8. Still minus 10. And then cubed. All right, so now let's take a look. Parentheses still, right? So the 2 kind of still hangs out. By the way, this arrow just means next step. 8 minus 10 is -2 cubed. Okay, now a lot of students are going to multiply these together first. That's a no-no. You have to do exponents first, order of operations. So -2 times -2 times -2 is actually going to be a -8. So 2 times -8. And you really don't want to have to use a calculator here because you're supposed to be using your brain to make it sharper for these little calculations. So 2 times -8 is -16. And that's what the answer should be for that one. All right. And you can watch these videos as much as you want if you want to go back and look at some of these again. All right, this one says, evaluate the algebraic expression below where A is 2 and B is 4. All right, so we have A is 2 and B is 4. Okay, so we're going to plug those 2 numbers in, which means we're going to get 5 plus 2, and then this would be 3 plus 4. Okay, so now I can take the individual parentheses and combine those. So 5 plus 2 is 7. 4 plus 3 is 4, 5, 6, 7. And it turns out that 7 times 7 would be 49. And so now we've evaluated the expression. All right, so let's take a look at this one here. This is a word problem. This one says, Sheila is participating in a multi-day bike trip. On the first day, she rode 100 miles in 8 hours. It says, write an expression to model her average rate of travel and then find her average rate of travel. All right, so if she rode 100 miles in 8 hours, okay, then you have 100 divided by 8 would be miles per hour, right? It says to write an expression to model her average rate of travel and then find her average rate of travel. So if she traveled a distance of 100 miles, and I should really put my units here, in 8 hours, then basically all you do is just take 108, and then to find the average rate of travel, you just take 100 and then divide by 8, and you're going to get probably a decimal of 12.5. So 12.5 miles per hour. Okay, and that is a reasonable answer for a bike trip because 12.5 miles per hour isn't that fast, but it's pretty fast for a bike, not for a car. And so this one, what you had to do is actually write the expression, and then you had to simplify it. So just a little word problem to throw in there. All right, let's take a look at some other ones. Here's one that has 3 variables. So now let's tackle 3. A is 2, B is 3, and C is -6. That's going to be a challenge right there. All right, so we're going to plug those in. All right, so I need 2 squared, right, plus 3 squared minus -6 squared. It is absolutely critical to put parentheses around that number right there because that's going to be the biggest mistake by far. All right, so let's see where we're at. And I don't have much room down here. That's why I'm kind of going off to the side a little bit. All right, 2 squared is 4 plus 3 squared is 9. Now, here's the thing. These 2 negatives don't cancel out. you have to do the exponent first. So I'm going to keep the minus. -6 times another -6 is positive 36. So we have to be very careful on that. All right, left to right, we need to do this part first, the addition. And 9 plus 4 is 13. And then that's still minus 36. And so now you just have to do 13 minus 36. And you should get negative 23. All right. Okay, here's the next one. A is 2, B is 3, C is -6 again. I think I just kept using those same three numbers and changing the expressions because it doesn't really matter what these three numbers are. You just need to know how to plug them in and then simplify. It's the expression that changes every time to something different. So we have A is 2. Now C is right here. That's -6. B is 3. So I gotta be really careful how I plug these in. All right, so I'm looking at 2 minus -6. I'm gonna put parentheses around that -6 again. And I've gotten so many things wrong with negatives myself that I have trained myself to use parentheses around all these negatives so I don't mess up. All right, so I got 3 plus 5. Okay, so let's simplify that guy. Okay, parentheses first. 2 take away -6. Hopefully everybody knows that two negatives make a positive, right? When they're side by side and there's nothing else around. Two negatives make a positive. So we have 2 plus 6. And we could do this. 5 plus 3 is 8. We can definitely do the 8. All right, so now let's go ahead and add these two together. So next step, 6 plus 2 is 8. And 8 times 8 is, next step, 8 times 8 is 64. And that one should be done. Okay, next example. Now we have same three numbers. 12c minus 2 times a minus b squared. All right, let's plug them in and see what happens. So we got -6 here for c. Again, we have a 2 for a. And we have a 3 again for b. Okay, so we've got 12 times, parenthesis, -6, minus 2 times 2, I messed up, 2 minus 3, so I don't need parentheses because it's positive, squared. All right, so we can definitely do this first. 12 times 6 is 72, and it's negative because positive times negative is negative. So -72 minus 2, and I have to do these parentheses here. 2 take away 3 is -1 squared. Okay, and there's my next step. All right, so let's be careful now. Order of operations, that has to be done first. So -72 minus 2 times -1 squared is +1, right? I'm actually going to write that. Okay, next step. Got to do multiplication. 2 times 1 is basically going to be just 2. So we got -72 minus just 2. And when you subtract a negative from a negative, you get an even bigger negative. And I like to think of it like this. If I owe somebody $72 and I then owe them 2 more, that's not going to be positive, okay? And we see that all the time where people will take negatives and they'll mess this up. Think about money. If I owe somebody $72 and then I owe them 2 more dollars, I owe them actually $74. So think about money when you have these negatives if you're having a hard time with it. And that's pretty much it for that one. That one's no big deal. All right, let's take a look at this one. This one's kind of interesting. This one has an exponent as a variable. No big deal. Let's see what happens. A is 2. That's going to go there, and it's going to go here. B is still 3. That's going to go here, and it's going to go here. And C is still -6. And that's going to go right there. All right, let's plug all those numbers in and see what it looks like. All right, so here we go. 3. Now I got plus -6 in parentheses. Close it up. Raised to the second power minus 2 times 3. Okay. Let's see what we can do here. First of all, I can definitely take 3 plus -6. Now, if you remember back, way back when, if these signs are different, then you take the difference of these two numbers. And the difference of 6 and 3 is 3, right? And then what you're supposed to do is whichever number is bigger, you take that sign. So 3 and a -6, since the difference is 3 and the bigger one's negative, that's going to actually turn out to be -3. And then square that. Okay, minus. Now it's not going to hurt anything if I go ahead and multiply these together, is it? Because this part is separate from this part. So I can go ahead and just put a 6 right there, and I'm good. All right, now -3 times another -3 is actually going to be +9, because negative times negative is positive. When you square a negative, it's always positive. -6. And then we got 9 minus 6, and that's just going to be 3, right? So that whole thing just basically reduced down to just 3. All right, let's take a look at this one. And I like some of these interesting ones here like this. Okay, this one says, we have a couple fractions here, and those tend to bother people. So let's go ahead and go slow. All right, a is 2, so where's that? Here it is. A is 2. B is 3 still, so there it is, 3. And C is -6, here and here. All right. So if we plug all that in, let's see what it looks like. So I'm going to start out down here because I don't have much room over there. So I'm looking at parenthesis -6 over 3 squared plus -6 over 2 squared. All right, let's go ahead and do our parentheses first. -6 divided by 3 is going to be -2, right? Negative over positive is negative. So -6 divided by 3 would be -2. So I'm going to write -2 squared plus, and notice I'm using parentheses. You have to use parentheses. -6 divided by 2 should be -3. And we got to square that too. All right, so let's see what that looks like. Parentheses, -2 squared would actually be a +4 plus -3 squared is actually a +9. And so 4 plus 9 would be 13. So that whole thing, like that typical EOC question, would just all boil down to just a 13. So that's it for evaluating some of these algebraic expressions. Hope this helps. Remember to subscribe to my YouTube channel and like my videos, and I appreciate it. See you guys.